It's 7 o'clock. Okay, let's get started. Hello, everyone. This is Josh Udler. I wanted to do a talk to share some of my thoughts about my recent kidney donation. Not because I want attention, not because I'm looking for the limelight, actually the exact opposite. However, I think a lot of good can come from folks like you who are dialing in to hear my story. And also I have on the phone here a couple other people who are involved and I can have a chance to speak and have some Q&A. Just a couple of quick logistical things. If everyone could please put yourself on mute, that would be really good. We can unmute yourself later. I wish that worked with my kids. Also, if you have any questions along the way, you're welcome to put it in the chat, and the moderator, my wife Jennifer, will go through those towards the end as part of the Q&A. And as any good lawyer, I have a disclaimer. So I'm not a doctor. I'm not a surgeon. I know how to spell kidney. I know a lot of other information about kidneys, but I'm just a regular guy, a regular Joe. I'm not a rabbi. I'm a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer. So the views that I expressed are my own, and anyone else who speaks on this call is also just sharing their own thoughts. But again, I do want to start that this is intended to be a talk pretty personal, things I haven't shared with others. And I want to share with you, and maybe we'll grow from it and see where this goes and see what other people can be helped. I will say we have basically two other people who will take questions at the end, and one of whom will speak. We have, again, I was a kidney donor in December of 2021 in the middle of COVID. And my recipient, Josh Wilbur, is on the line as well. He will take questions at the end. And then we also have another kidney donor, Lynn Harris, who's on the phone on the video here, and she will also share a little bit of her story and take some questions at the end. So let me start that I'm inspired by lots of different things in my life, mostly from my very close family members. My grandmother, Lillian Dell, had a quote that stuck with me and kind of inspired me on the path that helped lead me to this kidney donation. And her quote was, and it is in my house here, "I expect to pass this way but once. Any good, therefore, that I can do, or any kindness that I can show to any fellow creature, let me do it now. Let me not defer or neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again." Attributed to Stephen Etienne de Grillet. I'm also inspired by many, many people, including my mom, whose primary motto is "do it now, waste not, want not." Clearly obvious implications to a kidney donor. My dad, Oliver Shalom, had many quotes and many inspirations, but he always focused on me to try my best. And whatever you do, succeed, fail, try your best and don't give up. So I'm Josh Udler. I am 47 years old. I have 3 kids. At the time, they were basically all teenagers. And I donated to Josh Wilbur, and I'll share some of the story and some of what I learned in this. I'm just a regular guy, trying to make a living, trying to be a good person, trying to be a good Jew, trying to be a good community member. And my dad passed away in 2016, and he was a recipient of blood transfusions as part of his treatment at NIH. And after he passed away, I decided I would donate my blood. And since then, I haven't donated every 57 days like the maximum you can, but very often I donate 2 or 3 months apart, nonstop, to the hospital at the National Institutes of Health, National Cancer Institute. So I have a history and a desire to give. I think many years ago, I signed up for some sort of a cheek swab for another type of donation of bone marrow, I think, but I didn't really keep up with it. And then my story starts somewhere around June of 2021. I went to a dinner at our friend's house back on one of the first times things were opening up. And Josh and Deborah Wilbur were there. It was great to see him. He looked a little different, not just because it'd been a couple of years, but I'm not particularly close with him. He's a community member. He was at the dinner table or lunch table. And it was then that I learned really that he had some history of kidney problems and they were going through whatever they were going through. And you can ask him more about that later if you really want to know. But it got me thinking about the topic. And then in August of 21, Deborah sent a very warm-hearted, gentle email, really speaking up that he was in need of a kidney. And it was sent to lots of people. I think it's basically a public record at this point. I have permission to talk about it. And it really spoke to me. And within a day or two, I and hundreds of other people crashed the system and signed up to be a kidney donor with him as a directed recipient. So as I understand it, he was diagnosed with kidney disease a couple of years ago, tried treatments, unsuccessful, disease progressed. That's pretty common with people with kidney failure. And he went to different clinics and hospitals and doctors. And Deborah's note really spoke to me because it spoke to, it mentioned a handful of points that were very sincere, very heartfelt, and really inspired me. Among them, she said, consider donating to yourself, to Josh or someone else. Just consider it. You know, might not be something you thought before, but here's someone in need, and there are many others in need, and you might not match. She said, spread the word, advertise because it's hard to find kidney donors, and pray for him. And I did, and I still do. And also check your own health for your own health and safety for kidney issues or anything out of the ordinary. So just, and there were other messages, but those really spoke to me. Very humble, very warm-hearted, and but she spoke up, and it was inspiring. So back to me, when I kind of looked into this, I really did a lot of research. Those who know me, it's really important that I understand and take in all this information. That was a character trait of my father, and reading lots of newspapers and just getting a lot of information from all sorts of hopefully reliable sources. So I looked at sources in Jewish law, because I try to be an observant Jew and follow halacha. I look for sources of medical reliable information and talk to people. So in the Jewish side of things, I learned, I listened to a great mentor of mine, Rabbi Breitowitz, who's a rabbi. He was my law professor at University of Maryland School of Law. He's a halachic authority in many fields, including medical ethics. And he gave a lecture and he went through all the sources. And what I gleaned from that as my first research was organ donation, specifically kidney donation, is permitted but not required. So a mitzvah is a requirement. You have to do certain things. It was not a mitzvah. It is not prohibited. You can't put your life at risk, but there's a relatively low risk. We'll get into that. But it's in the middle. It's a very nice thing to do if you can do it. It's honorable and commendable. There are other Jewish principles that spoke to this that inspired me. One is obviously those who are observant know we read it a couple weeks ago. There's a sentence in the Torah that says, "V'ahavta l'recha kamocha." Love your neighbor as yourself. And how can you love them is by giving to them. There's other rabbis that speak that to save one life is to save an entire world. And as a practical matter, saving a life really is a priority for over just about every other possible act, with a couple big exceptions, which we won't get into. On the medical side, I wanted to learn what was a kidney and what did it do and what might I be getting myself into. So looking at reliable sources like the National Kidney Foundation, kidney.org, and the National Kidney Registry, kidneyregistry.org, I learned a lot, and let me summarize it for you. Kidneys are two bean-shaped organs on each side of your spine. They have many functions. They remove urea and liquid waste from the body in the form of urine. It balances salts, electrolytes, and other substances in the blood. It produces erythropoietin, a hormone that aids in formation of red blood cells. It regulates blood pressure and regulates fluid and acid-base balance in the body. I think those are probably pretty important things, but what do I know? That was a joke. There are a lot of risks in donation, but because it's been around for so long, those risks are relatively low. And obviously we all get into a car, but we get in a car accident, we get in an elevator, the elevator could crash. Kidney donation you can do, and there's some risks. So what are those risks? In my research, I found that most people with again, you have two kidneys, neither of them works at 100%. You have a spare. In fact, a lot of advertising for kidney donation says, share your spare. Perhaps we were created with two kidneys for precisely the purpose to give it to others in need. Complications are unusual. There's a small scar. Nowadays it's small because it's done laparoscopically. I have a 2.5-inch scar above my belly button. And to the left of my belly button, I have a 3/4 inch scar on one place and then a little bit over another. So you have a scar. Okay, war wound of my life. There's no other proven detrimental effects on health post-donation. Long-term, having been a kidney donor does not influence the risk of kidney failure, high blood pressure, or diabetes. It does not decrease life expectancy. In fact, kidney donors have a longer life expectancy than the general public, probably because they're generally healthy people. There's other factors in that statistic. If a donor ever needs a kidney, him or herself, they are prioritized within the kidney waiting list. And we'll talk about that in a moment. And there's a very low death rate, somewhere around, according to a 2015 or 16 study, around 3 in 10,000 people die from a kidney donation. Pretty low. And at the hospital, I had my kidney donation done. There have been 0, despite many, many hundreds of surgeries there. So that went into my risk decision. To be a kidney donor, you need to be generally healthy. I was generally healthy. What do you know? I had just lost about 20 pounds that last spring after going to a wonderful trainer. I thank her very much. I'm sorry, a wonderful nutritionist. I thank her very much. And starting with a wonderful trainer, who I still go to and have had no change of pace other than a couple months before and a couple months after my surgery, which we'll talk about. A donor has to be healthy, can be just about any age, even in your 60s and 70s. And then you must match precisely a couple things medically with the recipient. It has to do with blood type, has to do with tissue match. I happen to have O positive blood type, which according to the place where I donate blood, about 39% of the population has O positive. It's the most common type of blood. It is a universal donor and is a universal recipient. There are other blood types, but I think my blood type needs to match the recipient's or has to have a high connectedness to them in whatever that blood way is, whatever the tissue way is. So having been a blood donor and being familiar with my blood type, all the more reason why I wasn't affected and felt it would be okay. The type of surgery is called a nephrectomy. A nephrologist is a kidney doctor. And you have 2 kidneys. If available, the left kidney is used because there's, I understand, a slightly longer valve for it. The kidney donors, whichever one of the 2 kidneys, and they did many tests, is stronger, is left in the kidney donor. So that's good. The surgery is anywhere from 3, 4, 5 hours for the donor and the recipient. You're a couple days in the hospital, a couple weeks at home, and fully recovered within a month, month and a half, typically. Those all seem like pretty reasonable risks to me. It's illegal in the United States to compensate in any way for kidney donation. It's enacted in 42 USC 201 for all your lawyers out there. And there's lots of good reason why it's prohibited both in this country and other countries, because as you can imagine, there can be all sorts of undue influence and wealthier people influencing other people to give when maybe they're not a good match, et cetera. At any time during the process, the donor can change their mind and decide not to. They can't be compensated by the kidney donor or in any way. The average total cost for kidney donation is somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million. And that's all paid for by the kidney recipient's insurance. So there's no out-of-pocket costs for the donor or for the recipient or the donor. And the first donation happened in 1954 in Massachusetts between identical twins. A donated kidney works for somewhere around 25 years. My surgeon told me if it lasts 20 years, that's a good result. If it does expire and organs have a shorter life once they're donated than they would have been in me, that the recipient can receive another donation from someone else. And you can receive a donation of a kidney from a living kidney donor, which is what I was and Lynn was, or it could be from a cadaveric donation, or possibly even from animals. But a living donor is fresh, as my surgeon said, nice and juicy and able to be used right away in close proximity. Adjoining rooms from a human is really the best, the longest lasting, and the best result. And rarely are there rejections of kidneys. In fact, I went to my surgeon and asked her 58 questions or so. And one of among them was, what if if I'm not a match, or if it doesn't work, what's the need? She said, I could find you a kidney donor if you don't match with this person in a heartbeat. No pun intended. So given those basic facts, I'm also a numbers guy, so some numerals really spoke to me. So 37 million people in the US have chronic kidney disease. 90% of them don't know it. 785,000 Americans have irreversible kidney failure and need dialysis, a very, very painful, invasive type of treatment to allow the body to keep functioning without a new kidney when the kidneys don't work. 555,000 receive dialysis. 230,000 people live with a transplant. So right now there's a kidney waiting list and there's all sorts of people on that list. There's some sort of prioritization based on need, severity. I don't know all the criteria for it, but there are somewhere around 100,000 people on the kidney waiting list. Of those, about 6,860 living donors donated a kidney in 2019. 6%, 7%. The average time on a waiting list is 3 to 7 years. Most people die without receiving a kidney. About 4,000 people die a year, more than 10 people a day in the US. There are 250 transplant centers in the US. The place where I had my kidney donation was in Georgetown, transplant center. It does the most in this area. My recipient Josh and his family picked that for whatever reasons, and very pleased, very good donation center. But even if it wasn't there, there are many around this area and around the country. And about 90% of donors know the recipient, a relative, a coworker, a friend. About 10% of donors do not. So as I gather this info, it was important to me to reach out, like I said, to Jewish sources, to secular medical sources, and to human sources. And I had the great fortune of hearing somehow that there were other kidney donors that were in my network. So I reached out to 3 of them, and I had a chance to talk in detail to one of them, Lynn Harris, on the phone here. And to hear from someone I knew, someone I respected and still respect, about her experience, although it was a while ago, really helped seal the deal for me and helped me understand that it's doable, it's relatively low risk, it's really a way to help someone out that you or I or anyone can do. Of course, I also spoke to my closest rabbis, my spiritual advisors, and they were entirely supportive. And last but certainly not least, I talked to my wife, and the support I got from her and my kids was really, and others very close to me and my family and close friends, was truly a source of strength. So I decided to move forward. I have this phrase from one of the prayers that we say every day, Hashem li v'lo ira. God is with me, I have no fear. I did not have fear. I didn't have fear at all once I made the decision. And that motto has really carried me through very strongly. So the process is you go online and you fill out a health questionnaire. Don't lie if you smoked pot or taken acid or whatever. You got to disclose it. This is not the time to say things, not that I've done that, or maybe I have, but it's not really the time to mislead in any way on something as important as this. So you fill out an online form. If you qualify or don't have any disqualifying factors, a better way to say it, then they have an interview where they have you interviewed by social workers, which are a wonderful function in our society, doctors, surgeons, other people who evaluate your mental capacity and the reasons you're doing it, in your view and your reasons, because it's really important, again, that kidney donation or any serious thing like this is done for the right reasons. We did a virtual video conference like this. I went to the hospital. It was wonderful, not telling my coworkers that I collected probably over a gallon of my urine one day and carried it to the hospital the next day while they took 20 vials of other blood tests to test all sorts of functions of the body. And as gross as that is to a non-medical person, it was not painful. It was not invasive. It was just them x-raying my chest and doing whatever the doctors do over the course of 3 or 4 hours. I got to meet with the surgeon and really, get some more information and good confidence from her. That was after that step. I realized it was moving in the right direction. I wasn't sure I was going to be a match yet, but I realized that things were going well. And I really had an opportunity, and I thought, and for me at least, it was very important to get buy-in from everyone in my family. So I'd already talked to my wife. I talked to each of my kids one-on-one. Now, teenagers have different levels of maturity and understanding and perspective. Talked to my mom, talked to my close brothers, talked to my close friend, talked to my rabbis, like I said, and really explained it and went through my analysis, like I've shared with you, of pros, cons, risks, etc. And I had a universal support. There was one particular member who challenged me and said, "Is this person worthy?" What if I want that kidney later on in life? What if you need it later in life? It's your body, do what you want. Why are you asking me? All sorts of questions that are very interesting to hear from your loved ones. But I would not move forward with it. And this person I went to and said, do I have your blessing? And the person said yes. It was universal support, and I'm very fortunate to have that support system. So as the process progressed, I found out I was a match. I picked a date, and the hospital said I could go to tell my recipient. So one night in November, on Hanukkah, a night, I called Deborah and Josh and said, coming home from work, can I stop by? I don't think I'd ever stopped by before. So they said yes. I don't know what was going through their mind. And I went over and I brought a card and a little bag. And in the card was a short note that said, Wilbur family, happy Hanukkah, Josh Udler. And in the bag was a warm, thoughtful, caring gift with tissue paper, a can of kidney beans. And that's how I broke the news to Josh that I was going to be his donor. We decided on a date. Because it was COVID, it was very important to be careful, obviously. I quarantined in my house. My wife was, when we went for walks in the neighborhood, was very thoughtful to remind me I'm carrying kidneys for two. Sounds like when she was pregnant. So I had to be very, very careful, not just with COVID, but even crossing the street, looking both ways, which I try to do anyway. The surgery date was set. The surgeon was set. And I told my coworkers, and phenomenally, I had, again, an amazing support system in my boss, all my coworkers. This is in mid-December, often a quiet time of year for my company at the time, not particularly quiet that year, but arranged for being away, getting coverage. Of course, some deals closed and good things happened in my absence, which I couldn't take credit for or give other people credit for, but you do what you got to do. I was out of work really only for 2 to 4 weeks. I'm sorry, 4 to 6 weeks, I think it was. 4 weeks, about 4 weeks. I also, in preparation, did 2 financially minded things that my father would be proud about. One, I bought life insurance, a 1-year policy that's specifically offered to kidney donors. It's never been collected upon, but it's something I did. Second thing is I paid all my bills for 1 year. So I'm still enjoying the benefits of not paying my bills because they're already prepaid. Anyway, the surgery was very early in the morning. My name's Josh. His name is Josh. I wanted to make sure they didn't get us mixed up. So I was sure that they said that the wristband I got was for the donor, not recipient, as was he. And even though it was COVID, I was able to give Deborah a hug and very emotional moment before the surgery. I went into the room, and the guy that knocked me out, they knock you out with whatever drugs. He said to me, I'm going to put something in your body and it's going to feel like you've had a glass of champagne or light wine. That's the last I really remember. I woke up and I had prepared by having a siddur, a prayer book with a couple pages noted, so that when I woke up, I was able to express gratitude that I did wake up. Post-surgery, like I said, it was a couple weeks of minor discomfort and out of work from mid-December to mid-January. Again, there was a wound on my chest that healed. The things I need to learn to do that are different as a practical matter is I need to drink a lot of water. I'm not a water drinker. So often people on this phone call and people that know me will see me with a water bottle. I don't like drinking water. I drink water as much as I can because it really helps my remaining kidney work. I also am prohibited from taking NSAIDs, non-steroinflammatory medicines, something like that. Basically, no Advil, no aspirin, and no other medicines that are in that category. And finally, the life restriction, I'm not allowed to play contact sports. So I don't play contact sports, but I would, we'll see when my grandkids come along, I'll hopefully still be able to wrestle with them. But in the meantime, I'm taking it easy in the sports department. I haven't gone skiing, although I'd like to, but not a big effect on my life. If you're a professional or aspiring professional athlete, this may not be the right thing for you. Other than that, I live a pretty normal life. And at this moment, I'd like to pass the floor over to Lynn Harris to share a little bit of her story, her experience, and her words. And after that, I'll have some final remarks, then we'll open up for Q&A. Lynn, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah.
Yes.
All right, I'll give the bullet points. I am almost 55-year-old woman with 3 children. I donated my kidney to Ziona Hakakian on the same day that Josh and Josh had their surgery, but 2004. So this year, our kidney is 18 years old. He's going to be legal to vote and drink. We celebrate the birth of her kidney that is now hers, that we jointly own. I moved here with my children in 2003 and my kids, and I was working at Hebrew Academy. And through a mutual friend, I learned of a woman in the community who needed a kidney. Oh, let me back up. I apologize. When I was in college, I went to college in Mississippi, and I'm a Jewish girl from DC. And in Mississippi, I learned of someone who needed bone marrow, who they were requesting individuals from Middle Eastern area. And I thought, well, I don't know how many other Jews might be around here. So I got a swab in Mississippi. I was not a match, but that was a spark that, I was excited about the potential of maybe being a match and maybe winning the lottery. That's kind of how I looked at it. That didn't really transpire. But I made sure every time I moved that I was on the registry, and I was always in the back of my mind aware of this. So I moved here in 2003. My kids were 9, 7, and 4 when we had the surgery. And I learned of Ziona, and her 3 older boys were in the high school at Hebrew Academy. So I pulled her oldest son aside and asked him what his mother's blood type was. And he didn't bat an eye. He just said, I'll tell you tomorrow. He comes into my office and tells me she's B positive, which was my blood type. And I was like, okay, thanks. He didn't question it. So I thought about it a lot. My brother's a rabbi. I asked him questions. I prayed on it. I thought about it. And then I called her up. I didn't do anything as fun and cute as kidney beans. I just called her up and said, hi, I don't know if you know me, but I work at your kid's school, and I wanted to get tested to see if we were a match. And so therein started the process. So that was in Pesach. I don't remember the phone call. She said it was Chol Moed, Pesach. And we started the testing, and it is all the testing that Josh says. Every test you can imagine. Eye tests, a mammogram. Like, they want to make sure that the donor is 110% healthy, because the health of the donor is just as important as the recipient. And if there's any issues, there would be a delay. So all the tests went through. We had the surgery scheduled for early fall, September or October. And she got sick, the flu, a little cough, and of course we wanted to delay the surgery. So the surgery was delayed to December 21st, 2004. It's the same day as Josh and Josh. It just, when Josh Udler told me, I screamed. It was just amazing that it was on the same day as me and Ziona's anniversary, and also on my wedding anniversary. So it replaced that anniversary for me. And also, funnily enough, this was back then when we had answering machines. I came home from Shabbat, walked into the house with the kids. First voicemail I had was from, hi, this is Joe Schmo from the Bone Marrow Registry. You've been selected to donate your bone marrow to somebody. Can you give us a call back? And I was, no way. Right when we're in this process of working to donate my kidney, the next voicemail was from the kidney surgical coordinator. And she said, we have a surgery date. It's going to be December 21st. So now on the same voicemail over the same weekend, I had 2 voice messages, one for bone marrow and one for kidney. So I thought that was amazing. There's so many amazing things have happened on this journey. So the surgery was the 21st, December 21st. My kids were young, and they didn't really, it didn't really impact them. I mean, sure, their mom was down and I couldn't really, you know, do a lot of fun things with them. And I remember taking them to the playground a couple weeks after the surgery, and I overdid it. And they had to help me back to the car, and I went home and laid down for 2 more weeks. And thank God I healed well. I had the old fashioned slice and dice. So I had a longer recovery than the laparoscopic that Josh had. Healed well. I don't feel I have any restrictions. I know Josh said that they recommend that you don't do contact sports, but I either missed that memo or just didn't even pay attention to it, because I wrestle and climb trees and jump out of airplanes, and there's been no restrictions. I do runs and not marathons, like tough mudders and things like that. And I've had no physical restrictions whatsoever. I've had the benefit and the blessing of talking to multiple classes at Hebrew Academy. When I worked there, the Rebbeim would ask me to speak when they got to their medical ethics section. And the thing I always wanted to impart to the kids was how important I felt this was in a way of Parnassa. And in my very simplistic mind of looking at it, just like when you donate blood, I look at it as tithing, or not Parnassa, I used the wrong word, like tithing, like tzedakah. You're giving a little bit, and if I couldn't afford to give money, I could give blood. Well, you know, now I had the benefit of donating a kidney, and that was, like, to me, honestly, like winning the lottery. I was a single mom. Ziona's family, you know, she's got 4 amazing boys, and my children now had 4 big brothers, and Shmuel is like a father to my kids in a way. And so now we're a blended family, and she's been healthy and hale. One of the things that, as a mother, I shared with Josh Udler when we talked, one of the things that was the biggest joy, other than Ziona's health, and she's, thank God, doing amazing. My oldest son, Luke, when he was about, I don't remember, 14, maybe 15, he just randomly asked me, how long did kidneys last? And I said, well, live donor, they say 25 years, as long as the recipient, you know, takes care of themselves, takes their medication, etc. And he contemplated it, and he said, well, when I'm old enough, I want to, and if Ziona, God forbid, needs another one, I want to be tested. And that was the most amazing thing that a parent could hear their child say, that they have seen the process that I've gone through, and they've absorbed it, they've reflected on it, they want to mirror that. And that was a beautiful thing that my son shared with me, and very joyous mommy moment for me. So anyways, that's basically my story.
Thank you, Lynn. I remember that story vividly. You reminded me of a couple of things that I didn't get to mention, but I wanted to share it since we have a little more time. As Lynn described, she gave directly to another recipient, and I gave directly to another recipient. That doesn't always happen. Person A can match person B, and B matches C, and C matches D, and D matches A. When I say that, I mean, if you don't match the person you want to give to, there are ways to do chains where you can get, and there's modeling, business models and the like that can match people up. So there can be chains where one person gives to another, and then it circles back And as long as you can complete the chain, again, everything matches with blood type and tissue. We didn't have that experience, but don't you think that that you're off the hook if you don't match the person you want to give to? You can still make it work in a chain like that. Another thing is I have to give credit to one of my brothers who gave me a can of kidney beans when he found out I was doing this. So that wasn't an original on my part. And then another thing, when I did go to the hospital and talk to my surgeon with my, dozens and dozens of questions, towards the end, she said to me something that struck me. She said, as a kidney donor, basically you're going to the hospital and dropping something off. And that's what I did. As much as there was a little prep and a little afterwards, the real hard journey and the discipline, like Lynn said, about taking your medicine every day for the rest of your life is on the recipient, not the donor. I dropped something off at the hospital, and while Lynn and I both had a few months of discomfort, of pain and some healing and some scarring, that's it. We dropped something off, and it's really allowing the recipient to live a life, and they better take their medicine. And it's sometimes a problem when they don't, for them and for the donor. But I just dropped something off at the hospital. So in conclusion, a couple thoughts, and then we'll open up for questions. Again, you can send questions in the chat and we'll go through them, or you can ask them live in a moment. But a close relative of mine said to me when I told him that I was donating a kidney, he said, if your dad were alive, the first thing he'd say is, "You're crazy, Josh. You're out of your mind." And the second thing he'd say is, "I'm proud of you." So whatever goes through each of our minds when it comes to something like this, it's a little crazy, but it's a way to help. And it might be something you never thought of. So if you're intrigued, if you are thinking, maybe me or something, do something and do it now. Don't wait. You can donate your time, your money, your blood. I have a blood donation appointment in 2 days. Again, I'm back on the circuit. Donate your kidney. There's other organs that can be donated safely. Pick anything, but make it your own. We each give in our own way. And while this was the way that Lynn and I gave based on our stories, it's not for everyone. And just think about giving in your own way. And then the last thing I want to say is, before we open it for questions, is there's Ethics of the Fathers, Pirkei Avot, that has something that's always really spoken to me, and I think it's very relevant here. So many of you will recognize this. And I'll do it in Hebrew as best I can, and then in English. Imein ani li mili, ve'im rak ani mani, ve'im lo achshav eimatai. This translates into, if I'm only for myself, what am I? And if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? And if not now, when? And I think what you're hearing now from me and Lynn is Deborah and others who are seeking a kidney donor, they're speaking up for themselves. You have to advocate for yourself. We are people with egos, people that have needs, whether it's medical or others. Speak up if you have a need in whatever way that is. That's the Wilburs. But if you're only for yourself, what are you? That's Lynn and me, and I'm sure many of you who will be inspired from this talk. And if not now, when? Lynn had kids that were young. I had kids in their teenage years. Wherever you are in your life, do it now. Follow my mother's motto. Do it now. Do it now. Don't wait. And with that, Jen, if you could maybe ask the questions, if any, that are in the chat. In the meantime, if you have a question, hold on, we will get to it. Do we have any questions in the chat?
No, not yet, but people can also raise their hand and I can unmute them.
Okay, if you raise your hand on the Zoom, Jen will speak up for you, but the floor is yours and my mouth is dry. And while we're waiting for questions, an added benefit of giving your kidney or anything is the humor that comes from it. So let me share some of the humor that's come with it. I have a kidney mug. Of course I'm a kidney donor. Who wouldn't want a piece of this? I have a kidney pillow. which I snuggle up to. It's my second kidney. And I have a kidney t-shirt that says, "You gotta be kidding me." Not the reason you do it, but without humor, how do we get through the day? Any questions? Please raise your hand.
I gave Ziona a shirt that said kidney thief.
That's great.
I'll ask a question. So first of all, thank you, Josh and Lynn, for sharing the story. It's really amazing and inspiring. I guess my question would be for both of you. Do you find in other areas, I know you kind of both talked about this a little bit, but do you find in other areas of life, not specifically related to kidney donation, but you're just walking around experiencing things, other areas of life, and just like what you went through speaks to other moments too, in like kind of profound ways that maybe you hadn't, you wouldn't have seen things in different ways before.
What?
Again, everyone, please mute your phones. But Lynn, would you want to share your thoughts?
How has it affected me in other ways? Just grateful, just seeing a bigger picture to life, that there's a purpose, I think, for everything. I wasn't very fearful going into the surgery. I know you could be thinking that something could happen, but I just felt it was so inspired that I keep saying this, that I won the lottery, that I had the blessing, what's the word, the zchus,
right?
that I was selected, that I had the opportunity to do this, and it just gave me
You are unmuted. They can
an
hear you.
outlook of a greater appreciation for everything, glass half full of all my interactions, and just joy and appreciation.
Yeah, Rabbi Anthony, I guess I would answer that. Yes, of course. When I put my kids to bed when they were very young, I'd say the Shema prayer, and I'd say the Asher Yatzar prayer, which is a prayer that you say, "Thank God my body works." And having gone through this, I'm amazed that I sweat, that my nails grow, that my heart beats, that my eyes blink, that my throat swallows, that my muscles grow. I mean, this has developed in me a real appreciation for the fact that the body works and works in miraculous way. Josh, I don't know if you want to maybe share your thoughts on that. You don't have to, but if you want to.
Yeah, and just want to say thank you to Lynn and Josh for taking the time and sharing their experiences. Before I answer, one of the things that I sort of thinking about as you're talking is, we heard early on in the process that people said, "Oh, there were surveys done and they asked the donors, like, would they do it again? Was it a good experience? Would they tell other people to donate?" And overwhelmingly, donors said yes. And I think what we're hearing tonight is, like, Lynn says she won the lottery. Like, it's a little bit counterintuitive, and I really appreciate that perspective. In terms of perspective, yeah, I mean, like, how can it not change you? How can you find yourself in a situation where I'm not staring at that can of kidney beans that I keep on my desk or whatever, in terms of like, hey, like, it is a new lease on life, and I call it instant perspective, right? You're going about your day and your business and your whatever you're doing, and all of a sudden, like, you're hit with it, and having the ability to sort of look back and say, like, that could have gone a different way, but if it weren't for the just the goodness of people.
Next question.
Yeah. And actually, Josh, this is for you. Or I'll just ask it through the room. Somebody wants to know how you're doing. Your last name, Josh.
Someone wants
Wilbur wants to
No,
to know how Josh Wilbur's doing.
I'm doing great. I think it's I feel great. I do have to take my medicine twice a day, and it's coming up in about 16 minutes. But aside from that, like, I feel great. I was working out in my yard today. I'm doing everything that I had done before, eating the foods that I like, and just really feel tremendous. I think it's one of those things that didn't realize how poorly I felt for the past 2 years until you're on this side and like, holy cow, I really feel like my old self. Thank you for asking.
Questions right now?
All right, no more written questions. We still have some more time if folks want to ask questions.
I have a quick question. So you spoke, it was so powerful to me, Josh, when you shared about how you were just able to stop by and drop off the kidney beans. And there's something I think so amazing for all of us that you know each other, we're all in the same community, and that and that sort of like we could look at both of you and we know both of you, and we know that one of you gave it to the other, and that's really beautiful. I guess my question is, if that wasn't the case, this was like anonymous, like if you had no idea who the recipient was, would that have changed the equation for you? And like, do you think this is something you could have done if it was totally anonymous and you never really would know the person that you gave it to?
So let me answer that first, and then Lynn, pass it to you. So when I started this process, although it was intended for Josh, I actually almost didn't make the cut. In other words, the first receptionist I spoke to, Rabbi Cooper, said to me, "We have enough people who've expressed interest, so we probably don't need you." And I said to her, "But I might be willing to give to others." And I felt that deeply inside of me. And she said, "Really?" And she sounded surprised. This is someone at the center. And she said, "Oh, in that case," and then we went forward with the process. So I have had the thought all along that I want to give to Josh or someone else, no matter who it is. I will also pause and say that the family member I mentioned earlier who challenged me really made me question that. And I don't think I would have had that person's support to do it to a complete stranger. So while I believe I would have, again, it's very important to me to have full support across my family. That's who I am. That's who my family members are. I know there are other kidney donors who are going to do what they want. So that's me. And as a practical matter, I think I would have done it for someone else that I could persuade this one person who challenged me on it. The other thing I want to say, and I didn't say earlier, but it's related to this, is I didn't really want to make it public that I was the donor. And a very, very wise woman who lives with me advised me, why do you want to burden yourself or others with a secret, especially when it's really not necessary and people can learn and grow from this experience. So with that, not only did I not hide that I was a donor, but I'm having this talk now. So I think it's important to be public about donation, although I think, to your question, Rabbi Cooper, I think it is really, really the kind, giving, selfless souls in this world that give anonymously to anyone. And there's many of them out there. They're really in the minority. And that's really just an amazing factor. I also just want to say, I just for folks, I went out of my way to tell the rabbis at the two synagogues I go to that was my view on it, not to keep it a secret, but don't advertise it. So what do you know? I think something happened in the synagogue that weekend that all these people started looking at me funny and saying congratulations and good luck and all that the next week. But anyway, I would like to have given to other people if it had not been a match with Josh, but I didn't have that opportunity. Lynn?
So I didn't know Ziona when I called her to get tested. That seed had been planted in Mississippi. And I knew as a single mother who was struggling in my own way that I knew that tzedakah was important, and I wanted to be able to give what I could, and I would, help out at Chabad, and the kids would schlep tables around, and I did what I could. And I know schlepping tables is imbalanced with donating a kidney, but that was the approach that I had mentally, that I wanted to give back. And so now, of course, she's my sister, but I didn't know her when I called her to get tested. Was there a second part to that question? I've forgotten now.
I think that was it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? And any other questions on the chat?
No.
There are some fun things that I'll just, if anybody else wants to put a question in the chat, but with Ziona and I, we definitely have some very interesting things that have happened since the surgery. And I'm wondering if Josh, if you guys have had any of these cool, weird moments. Ziona started having some vertigo right after the surgery, and I was having dizzy spells, and we think that the dizzy spells I was having was related to when she was feeling vertigo. Also, there was a evening once where, and I called Dave Berman when he lived, when I lived in the community. I was having severe abdominal pain on the opposite side of where the kidney was removed. It was more like appendix kind of, and I didn't know what it was, but it was seriously painful. And the next day I'm in school and Ziona's son comes to me and he was like, we didn't tell you, but we took my mom to the hospital because we thought she had appendicitis. So I was feeling the same pain that she was feeling. Now it could be wacko, but it's consistently, we're having these, it's been a long time and we don't really have that anymore. But in the first, I'd say 2 years, we had a lot of interesting kind of parallel partner feelings at the same time from physical. And I really do think it's some sort of muscle memory from the organ. Oh, and one thing I did want to bring up, my doctor explained that the kidney has been shown to grow, my remaining kidney and Josh Udler's remaining kidney has been shown to possibly grow up to almost 1.5 times its size. So in equivalent of having 1.5 kidneys instead of 2, because the remaining kidney, the doctors say that it grows to compensate and like grows more muscles to compensate for the one that's missing. Now, it hasn't been weighed, I haven't had it ultrasounded, but I did feel something in my abdomen, and I asked the doctor about it, and because it felt like I had a baby, I could feel the weight in there, and obviously it's I'm accustomed to this extra size, but that's when he shared it could possibly go up to 50% more.
I did not have any situation where I had a feeling that Josh had, but maybe that's to come.
Keep an eye out for it. It's pretty cool.
I'll also say a kidney weighs about 6 to 8 ounces. Again, it's a 3 to 5 hour surgery, so you do lose a little bit of weight. When you donate blood, a pint weighs about 1 pound, and it comes out in about, for me at least, 4.5 minutes. So if you're interested in weight loss, blood donation is a more effective method.
Beth has a question.
Yes, Beth, you have a
Did
question.
they leave the poorly working kidney inside Josh?
Did they leave the poorly working kidney inside Josh?
Yep.
Yes.
Technically, I have 3 now. Thanks, Josh. But 2 basically stop functioning, or whatever function was left stops, and they just remain there. I guess they just sort of scar tissue over.
And is my understanding, because among my 50 plus questions to my surgeon, she said that it stays in there and that there would be too many complications and risks to you to remove the non-functioning kidneys when the body will take care of them on their own.
It causes no harm to keep them in there.
There are certain kidney diseases, I will just say, where they do need to take them out, where the kidneys are causing physical pain to the person. And in which case then, or they're growing cysts or things like that, in which case they do take them out, but they try, if they don't need to, they leave them in. It's a much more invasive surgery.
And again, the wonderful phrase of the name of the kidney disease, Josh, that you have, what is it called?
Immunotactoid glomerulonephritis.
Wow.
There are many types of kidney disease and kidney conditions. That is one, and I understand it's a rare one. Any other questions? So thank you all for coming. This has been very important for me and Lynn and Josh to share with you. Thank you to Jennifer Udler for coming up with the title of this, The Inside Scoop. Thank you to Shoshana Udler for doing the flyer. And thank you all for coming. I hope, and we all hope that this is helpful to each of us to learn, to grow, and to possibly be inspired to do something that we might not have otherwise considered. So God bless you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Look in the chat, there's lots of things. I don't know what to do with it.